Hello, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Tuesday, July 19th, 2011. Well, in the United States, the housing starts came in for the month of June. They jumped to their highest level in 5 months. This was quite a surprise, actually. It increased about 14.6%, up to about 630,000 annualized units. Economists had been expecting a 580,000 pace. Single-family home starts rose about 9.5%, and large apartments units surged 32%. That's quite something. The stock market's going to pick up big time as a result. Meanwhile, in the United States as well, the deadly heat gripping the southern and midwestern U.S., from Texas to Minnesota up to the Dakotas, is now approaching the East Coast. High temperatures have led 20 states to announce heat warnings or advisories, while humidity is making it feel as hot as 115 degrees across much of the country. The heat index yesterday was 126 in Newton, Iowa, 120 in Mitchell, South Dakota, and 119 in Madison, Minnesota. Here in New Jersey, it is expected to be 100 degrees on the thermometer on Friday. The heat index will probably be about 115. Meanwhile, the Bank of America announced a nearly $9 billion second quarter loss, $8.8 billion. They're blaming it on defective mortgages. How long will that go on? Now to the reinsurance news. Two of Europe's largest insurers have demanded that the EU rethink Solvency II capital rules in light of the European debt crisis. In a rare joint press conference, German insurer Allianz and Swiss insurer Zurich Financial said that capital requirements for government bonds from EU states should be adjusted to take account of the default risk of those countries. Right now, all EU bonds in the portfolios of insurers are treated the same. In contrast to investments in equity or real estate, insurers don't have to provide extra capital when buying government bonds from countries in the EU. According to the Zurich CFO Dieter Wemmer, there's no agreed solution yet to account for the varying quality of government bonds. He said the system has to be corrected at this point. That means it'll make investing in bonds with a high risk of default more expensive for insurers, but this step is necessary to protect their clients. Very interesting. Of course, in the EU community, you can buy a Greek bond or a French bond or a German bond, and according to Solvency II, it's treated the same way. You don't have to have any reserve requirements for it. They do have a point. AM Best has cut the outlook on Kuwait Re to negative from stable. It did affirm its financial strength at A-, which is excellent. AM Best noted that Kuwait Re's increasing reliance on investment income and the volatility associated with its inward retrocession business could be a problem. Its risk-adjusted capitalization seemed fine, but it's been declining, partly because of recent expansion. Kuwait Re's management is budgeting for a 107% combined ratio this year, absent any further cat losses for 2011. And Best said that technical losses for the full year are now inevitable. They said that we believe there is a risk of further deterioration given the company's expansionary plans and the increased potential for losses in 2011. Kuwait Re writes business in about 60 countries in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Well, Pat Ryan scored a big win in a California court last week. It just came out that RT Specialty President and CEO Tim Turner, who had left CRC to go to Pat Ryan's group, won a ruling from a Los Angeles court that invalidated a non-competition clause in his contract. The court made a similar declaration in a case brought by 28 former CRC staff who defected to join Turner at RT Specialty. This case closes one arm of the legal battle between Ryan Specialty and CRC. This is about a year after a mass exodus of CRC staff left them to go to the startup broker founded by Pat Ryan. Indian Railways has been in the news recently with a whole slew of crashes. Well, they had made a decision in 2009 to stop buying insurance. That left the company out of pocket, as rising claims payments in recent years have considerably exceeded what it would have paid in insurance premiums. Indian Railways decided to stop buying commercial cover 2 years ago after insurers tried to increase its annual premium by about $224,000 up to 780 million rupees. Since then, claims have been paid out of its own pocket. Since that decision was made, about $1.5 billion rupees have been paid out by the company each year, comfortably exceeding the $780 million in rupees it would have had to have paid for the insurance. The high levels of compensation have also increased, with families of those who die receiving $500,000 rupees, while for disability the sums can go as high as 100,000 rupees. American broker Brown & Brown has been hit by falling contingent fees, increased expenses, and some organic retrenchment. Second quarter net income was down more than 10%. Brown & Brown is headquartered in Daytona Beach. They saw net income dropping 10% down to $37 million from $41 million. J. Powell Brown, president of the company, attributed the falling profit to a drop in contingents amid large losses suffered by American primary insurers during the catastrophe-ridden Q2 in the United States. Brown & Brown is a very well-run company, and you have to keep in mind that they had a heck of a net revenue anyway. Tokio Marine Europe Insurance Limited has filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection from creditors in a New York bankruptcy court for a book of runoff reinsurance. The British-based firm, which writes predominantly primary insurance business, put the reinsurance business in question into runoff back in 2004. The Chapter 15 protection is designed to ensure that the scheme is honored in the U.S. It covers inward reinsurance business written by Tokio Marine through stamp numbers TO304, TO403, and TO502. The company described the Chapter 15 arrangement as a tidying up exercise. Meanwhile, Japan has now been hit by a torrential typhoon, which is expected to affect the country until the end of this week. It's prompting safety warnings at the tsunami and earthquake-damaged Fukushima nuclear plant. At about 5 p.m. local time today, the center of Typhoon Ma-on was located only about 24 miles south of Shikoku, Japan. Effects of the storm could be felt into northern Honshu Island, with rain bands exceeding about 500 miles to the northeast. Winds as high as about 120 miles per hour have prompted workers at the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant to take safety measures. Ma-on is expected to stay close to the Japanese coast or just onshore of Shikoku as it moves to the northeast. Meanwhile, in Britain today, as we speak, Rupert Murdoch and his son are appearing in front of a parliamentary committee to respond to parliamentary concerns about the News Corporation phone hacking scandal. This is really quite something. Thousands and thousands of cell phones have been broken into, private conversations have been taped, repeated verbatim in Mr. Murdoch's newspapers apparently, at least these are the allegations. And the question now is, how high did this knowledge extend? Did Mr. Murdoch and his son know about it? And then, of course, the next thing is, what about the connections between Mr. Murdoch and the British government? A former top aide to Prime Minister Cameron is a former editor of one of Mr. Murdoch's papers. That aide has since resigned. However, with the spate of resignations that have plagued Scotland Yard in the past 72 hours, the top 1 and 2 people in the organization have left. Britain is on pins and needles. The American FBI has also opened its own investigation. News Corp's stock prices plummeted. The Murdoch's worth has decreased by over $1 billion, and the 81-year-old Mr. Murdoch is expected to be facing parliamentary questions in about 45 minutes. By the time you're watching this, you'll no doubt know what the result is. But after we finish, we're going to go watch it. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.